So once we've kind of filtered out the properties, we'll just call, really. I mean, we'll call and we'll just try to connect. It's really nothing fancy. We just try to make a lot of phone calls, as many as possible. And then we just try to keep it as warm as possible, right? I don't really like cold calling. Even if there's some sort of common factor, some sort of common denominator like the weather or even just sports, like anything that can just initiate conversation and then keep it going.
This is the real estate investing experience. We get it. Real estate can be rough sometimes, and that's why we bring in the experts to talk about the experiences you won't hear anywhere else with your hosts, John Cohen and Chris Grinzik.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Experience. I'm your host, Chris Grenzig, and with me as always, John Cohen. John, how are we doing?
We're doing good. Getting a little colder here, but we had a little snow flurries today, which was fun.
That was shocking.
It was a little shocking, but that's the time of year. We want to push that as long as it goes. But no, we're doing good. Got a couple deals in the pipeline, getting to the finish line, wrapping up our raise, and excited. To take it to the end of the year.
For sure. Awesome. We're going to jump right into it because we got two guests on today, so I'm sure there's going to be double the talking. But we're going to let them introduce themselves. I think it's going to be really interesting. They've, gone from the multifamily into the mobile home space as well. So I think you guys are going to have a ton to talk about, and I'll probably have a bunch of different questions to ask. So it'll actually probably be a pretty good format. But guys, take it away. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Nick Hakim, originally from just south of Savannah, Georgia, in Hinesville. I was, as Chris mentioned, previously in the multifamily space in New York City. I was with a family office there for about 5 years, doing value-add multifamily and mixed-use properties, a little bit of everything from underwriting and sourcing acquisitions to financing, raising capital, all the way through to execution and eventually to disposition of those properties. About 8-9 months back, actually a little bit more than that now, almost a year ago, Luke and I here partnered up, saw an opportunity in the mobile home space, sort of jumped ship from our corporate jobs in New York, partnered up to form Pioneer Communities, and we've been laser focused on the acquisition of manufactured housing communities up and down the East Coast. So I'll let Luke introduce himself real quick.
Hey guys, so Luca DeGrossi here. Nick kind of covered it. So my entrance into real estate was a little bit less formal, I guess, than Nick's. I kind of got into real estate by accident. I had a family friend who had an opening at her company. It was an affordable housing developer in northern New Jersey, and just sounded like a good opportunity. Got involved there and I loved it. I stayed there for a couple of years, and then I transitioned over to the debt and equity side in New York, which is actually where Nick and I connected originally. So I was at a company called HKS Capital Partners in Manhattan, just structuring debt, raising equity across different transactions, and inadvertently actually came across a mobile home park refinancing at that company, and was kind of blown away by the terms and the leverage that we were securing for that transaction. So it kind of caught my eye, like at a place in the market where, even getting 70-75% on like just a more standard vanilla multifamily refi, these guys were getting like 80-82% conventional financing. So just kind of from the get, like it caught my eye, and stayed there for a couple of years until Nick and I made the jump, like he said, about 12 months ago. Closed on our first acquisition here in Hinesville, probably 3 weeks ago now?
3 weeks ago tomorrow.
So, we're reporting live from Hinesville and looking forward to sharing more about it with you.
Awesome. I love it. I think your guys' story is going to resonate with a lot of people. I think the perfect place to kind of start is kind of the meeting, and then, how you guys finally decided, okay, let's make the jump. Because I think there's going to be a lot of people listening to this who are working full-time or thinking about making the jump full-time or looking to enter into a partnership with somebody else. So if you guys can either collectively or each individually kind of give your take on, the meeting, the conversations that kind of came across as things were going on, and, at what point you were like, all right, let's give this thing a shot.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think 18 months or even 24 months ago, if you would have asked either of us if we'd be, pursuing mobile home park acquisitions full time right now, we'd probably tell you you're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Luke and I have definitely always had sort of an entrepreneurial bug. I was actually an entrepreneurship major in college, was a part of launching a few different companies while in school, and just always sort of had that bug about me. And, working 80 hours a week for somebody else was never my idea of a good time. I was always looking at things saying, why aren't I doing this on my own? I'm definitely capable of doing this. And that just always sort of was going on in the back of my mind and was always bugging me. And so it was sort of natural for me to leave. It was definitely scary, but, Luke and I had partnered up and number one, we were friends outside of work and acquisitions. We're friends, and we'd always been spitballing back and forth ideas. So first it was, your standard multifamily buildings. We were looking at, 6 or 8 unit multifamily buildings in Brooklyn and Manhattan, saying, how can we make sense of a 4 cap or a 4.5 cap? As first time investors, how are we going to pitch this? What happens if the market turns south? How is that going to affect us moving forward? And both decided, and I think it was a timely decision, that it wasn't a good idea for us at the time. We both, I think, eventually loved to own in New York at some point, but now is definitely not that time. So what had happened was during these conversations, my father, who's a broker in upstate New York, actually brokered the sale of a mobile home park. And while Luke had partaken in the refinancing of a mobile home park, I'd seen the sale of one firsthand. And my dad passed it along to me and was like, listen, you should start taking a look at this asset class. We had 8 full price offers in a week. And, just look at the metrics. It was an 8.5 cap deal with a ton of upside in it. And, it just really caught our attention. So he and I started spitballing back and forth about it, and both eventually mustered up the courage to leave our jobs and just jump ship and sort of burn the bridges and push out to sea and see what we could do on our own.
And I think it sounds a lot cleaner and more seamless talking about it now, a year later.
Sure.
Because in retrospect, everything kind of makes sense. But at the time, there was definitely a lot of fear, a lot of hesitation. And we didn't really know what we were getting into. I mean, we worked, we left Manhattan Views to work in a kitchen. We were literally working outside of Nick's apartment. And we kind of commandeered his kitchen living room area. And we were just like cold calling owners. We were trying to figure out what our business strategy would be. I mean, we would post up in where was it, Hudson Eats that we would go to? Yeah, in downtown Manhattan. And like we just, in retrospect, like, yeah, it makes sense. But at the time, because I think a lot of people who want to go out and do their own thing, there's a lot of people who romanticize it. And, as exciting as it can be, there's also a lot of challenges. So I think we definitely want to shed light on that as well.
So I think that like, I mean, it's funny because you say 18, 24 months ago, who would have thought it? I can recall a specific, I was in Austin, Texas in December of 2017. One of my best friends he was on our podcast, an earlier episode, Matt McCory, called me one day out of the blue. He's like, hey, let's go to Austin. Let's go to this mobile home thing. And I was like, yeah, whatever. You got an extra ticket? Let's go. So we go down there. And I'm walking through a mobile home park in Austin, and I look at him, and I was like, what the fuck? Where'd my life come to that I'm touring mobile home parks? Because I started, super heavy lifting tax deed stuff. Then I went to the multifamily. I was a broker. And I literally looked at him, and I, not unsimilar to their story, I was like, what am I doing? I said, if you would have told me 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I'd be touring mobile home parks in Texas, I would have called bullshit day one. But I fell in love with it. Just, sitting there, seeing the metrics, like you guys said, it was the most exciting thing in the world. So 2017, we made a investment in figuring it out. And, I think you guys actually met Megan in our office. I think,
we did. We did.
I honestly blew off the lunch with you guys. I was very busy and I couldn't make it. So I apologize now. Nick, I know we spoke in 2015 on the multifamily side, but, we're 100% active on the multifamily side. We're buying another, what is it, like almost 500 units on the multifamily side, but we have 2 full-time people in the office, Megan spearheading it. And, it's an asset class we love. We bought a 7-lot park in South Carolina shortly after December of 17. The deal's been just absolutely like make-believe, just the terms. It was a small park. It was a test to see what happened. But I agree with everything I spoke about. I think that you could go in buying cap rates that are super attractive with just a ton of meat on the bones.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a funny story, the way, how you guys looked at it. We looked at it the exact same way. And I think it's a really interesting class. And I think it's an asset class that is, has so much more runway than a lot of the other ones, because
Agreed.
the debt's good. The debt's good. The management intensive, run intensive, however you want to look at it, the tax benefits, it checks off a lot of boxes. So I think it's awesome. I think what you guys done have been, phenomenal. Just, leaving your New York lifestyles and getting up and going to, they're in a mobile home park right now doing this, doing the podcast. That's, like you said, it sounds more glorified, quitting my jobs and starting my real estate investment company. These guys are doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important for, any listener. They're not talking shit. They literally got up, left what they were doing. They flew. It's probably a couple, 2-hour flight or so, and then a drive or whatever it is. And they're sitting in a mobile home park right now. They closed on 3 weeks ago, turning a park around. I mean, where's a better story for, guys that are not, 50-year-old and come from millionaire backgrounds, maybe not, but these are young guys that literally got up, changed their life and made it happen. So there's really no excuse for not doing it. It's just, it sounds sexier than it may be. That path was probably extremely difficult, and you guys could talk a little bit more about it, but I know the feeling, because I had the same, like, it hit me in the face too when I was touring a park. I was like, this is a really good investment, and I want to know more about it.
Yep.
Yeah. Can you guys
so I think
go ahead.
Sure. Yes, I think like you were saying, I mean, if the listener out there, they're going to hear this and say, 12 months ago, these guys up and left their corporate jobs, just hustled a little bit and, found a deal. And, 12 months later, they own, 170 units down in Georgia. It was obviously, as you guys know, it's never that easy. It was the first 3, 4, 5 months was just a lot of relationship building, cold calling, traveling around. We tried to tour as many parks as we could to familiarize ourselves with the asset class. A lot of people go to the Frank and Dave boot camp. We actually haven't done that, but we've put in the time to figure the asset class out, meeting with owners, meeting with other operators, everybody involved in the business. But I mean, 4 or 5 months ago, we actually had, a couple of parks in contract in New York. We had about 400 pads in contract, all set to close. And, about 2 to 3 weeks after, into our due diligence period, the new rent laws passed, and we read, all the way through all the regulations. And, these were good deals, but, there wasn't a ton of upside. They were very well located, but, to execute the business plan and to achieve the returns we needed to achieve, these rent laws weren't going to allow us to do that. And, as first-time investors, again, we're not going to put our investors' capital at risk and risk our track record on our first deal with, regulations outside of our control. We'd rather be able to control as many outcomes as we can. And that just threw a wrench into things. So we ended up actually assigning one of the deals and walked from the others. So, that was really, really tough on us. We spent a good amount of capital and lost a good amount of capital, and that was just like a shot to the heart. But, we've got resilience, and, we just dug right back in as soon as we lost those contracts. We weren't moping around. We just got right back to the phones and kept going. And 2 weeks later, we came across this opportunity down in Georgia, and, here we are 3 weeks ago, we closed on it. So, I think that's the biggest lesson we learned in all of this. And the most important thing for anybody that wants to go out and start their own company and start acquiring properties is you've got to be resilient. It's not for the faint of heart. That's for sure.
No. And I think it kind of sucks too, because like building that resilience takes the pain and, kind of just discomfort and setbacks that we went through. Because, I mean, after those rent laws passed, what Nick didn't mention is that we spent the first 6 months like exclusively canvassing New York, because it's the state we knew best. We had best proximity to it. So I'd say like 85% of our pipeline we had to walk from when those rent laws were passed. So it was just a really disheartening moment, I think, in both of our paths there. But we started canvassing Georgia shortly thereafter, and we just connected with somebody. The timing was perfect. He had an offer on the table. That individual, for personal reasons, had to walk away. And it kind of gave us an entrance to this deal, which Nick kind of alluded to is it's a very big turnaround opportunity. And, we'll tell you more about it, but there's just no other place we'd rather be right now. There's something about this asset class, and you touched on it. It's just extremely exciting to be here. When we go tour new mobile home parks, we don't get the same feeling that we get when we tour other assets. It's just, there's something about mobile home parks that, we absolutely love them.
I love that. And you guys are preaching to the choir, right? And I think that, we've done a lot. We've done, our audience is going to hear more real estate stories, whether it's fix and flip, wholesale. We're trying to bring everything to the table and not just be exclusive. And you guys are the first mobile home group that we've had on here. And, like you said, I think that what people have to realize here is that you guys made a conscious decision 12 months ago to do this, and you just more or less 12 months ago. And you just you're finally closed on a deal. And I know what it's like from being a broker and from having a multifamily pipeline, and even Chris can speak to it. But I think the listeners have to understand, having a pipeline in 80% of your deals you have to walk away from, where you see clear dollar signs and good deals, that's not something that most people are going to give up. And, overcoming that hurdle, that's like without getting shiny object syndrome and saying, hey, let's go do self-storage because mobile home parks aren't going to work. To make that decision is so impressive, because I think it's easy to say, well, you know what, these rent laws and we're looking at it the same way. And I look at it and say, okay, hey, these rent laws are these rent laws. So now let's go back to all these sellers and just beat them down on price because we're capped. It is what it is. But there's that's my way of saying, okay, people are going to walk away now. So I'm going to step in and see what I can put together. But I think that, when you make that decision and to say, okay, 80% of our pipeline's gone, let's pick up and go somewhere else. And you guys did. And, seeing deals get to contract and then have to walk on is a tough thing to do. We've done it in the past as well. Where the deal just didn't make sense. And after due diligence and everything, it's just, hey, it's not going to work. And, we lost a couple bucks too, but it's the right decision to make. But can you speak to, what was the emotion when the law came out? Deals in contract, you guys lost money on. You wholesaled one or assigned, which is great. But when you looked at the pipeline, whether it had one deal in it or 100 deals in it, making the decision to say New York's not where we want to be and we're going to deal with that. And I don't want to say start over, but it was almost like starting over to saying, okay, hey, 80% of our database, whether it's 1,200 mobile home parks in New York or whatever the number is now, basically turning the page and saying, okay, same start, new page. What was that like? Because I think that's something that in this business more than anything else, not mobile home parks, just real estate, you have to know when to turn the page on a deal. Chris had an extremely funny post earlier today about, a deal you're looking at, then a new deal comes in and the emotion and what goes on between that. But can you talk about just taking the pipeline, tossing it and starting over? Because I think that's a very impressive thing to do and have the wherewithal to do that so early on in the business without, saying, you know what, we spent a little time here, let's go do something else.
You want to take that? Or?
Yeah, sure. So just to go back a little bit, we didn't totally, scrap the pipeline. We just sort of put it on pause. We're not really sure where these things are going to lead, the rent control laws. Nobody was really sure how it was going to affect values, pricing, appetite for deals, that type of thing. So we just said, listen, it's going to take time for this to pan out. Let's put this on the back burner. We still love New York. I was born and raised there. My family's there. Luke's close to there. We still are chasing deals in New York, but they've got to make sense.
100%.
There's no way that we can buy. You're buying for cash flow, not for appreciation anymore. You're buying a coupon clipper. So I think it's going to take 6 to 12 months, maybe 6 to 12 more months for that. The effects of the rent control laws in the mobile home space to really factor into pricing and pricing expectations of owners. So, in the meantime, why wouldn't we be canvassing for deals in markets like Charlotte or Greenville or, Savannah, Atlanta, Tampa? We're looking for areas that have experienced huge amounts of growth over the past, 5 to 10 years. And these people who are used to be in the city center keep getting pushed further and further and further out. And eventually, your most affordable option becomes a nice, renovated mobile home. So that's what we want to be in. We want to be in the outskirts of major metros and provide that quality, clean, affordable housing that, everybody in the lower.
Yeah, agreed. And going back to your question, think the feeling that I think we both felt for a couple of days was just disappointment, failure, fear, all three of those probably at the same time. But it wasn't very it wasn't very long that we stayed there, right? We just started canvassing the next day, the day after, and we're still canvassing now. I mean, we put out I think, was it 17 offers this morning across 3,400 pads, which penciled out to like 198 million. Was it 198 or
something like that?
198 million bucks worth of deals that we've just been hitting left and right. Because now, once we kind of got past that hump, now it's like it's not that hard anymore, right? Like now, we've got other things that we need to kind of check. Like we need to manage the part, which is what we're doing down here, and we love doing it. Because at the end of the day, like very hands-on managers, we're always going to be hands-on. We're stewards to our tenants and to our investors, and so us being down here, it's important for them, it's important for us, and so we feel like we've kind of got a purpose when we wake up in the morning.
That's awesome. No, I think that's important, right?
Can you guys hear us all right?
Yeah, we can. It's cutting out a little bit, but
we'll be fine.
We'll be fine. I think that is what people need to hear, right? It's 17 offers today, hundreds of millions of dollars. Are they all going to hit? No. And you guys probably have a better idea today on how many offers it takes to get a contract, and then, how many offers it takes to get a contract, and how many calls you have to make and how many mailers you have to send out. But that doesn't happen overnight. And I think that's people, people have to realize that exactly, is that you gotta figure it out a little bit. It's going to take some time, but now you guys know you're going to make 17 offers. You don't have to offer, let's call it a 7 cap or a 6 cap or an 8 cap, whatever it is. That you could put 17 offers out, and if you do 10 tomorrow or 3 tomorrow, or what you have to do, but that I can offer my X cap rate because I know I'm going to raise rents to here because this is the market we're in. We understand it. You're going to get the results, and it's not just buying the next shiny object deal that comes in because it checks off the box. You guys are going to make the destiny, if you want to call it that, but you're going to create it by knowing that there's a certain amount of deals we're going to chase, and we're going to offer on all these with our numbers. And if they come in, we can execute quickly. And I think that the mobile home space is so mom and pop run. Any level of professionalism brought to it is going to bring instant value to the deal when you pick it up. And I think that's where, we see the most value is that, these deals take a long time to get to the finish line because it's, they don't have rent rolls, they don't have financials, and it's so mom and pop run that if you can get your hands on a good, a good deal, and you can help it get to the finish line, not only is your financing going to be there, the returns are going to be great, and executing that is huge. And I think, you guys probably have a better idea today than you did 12 months ago on how many offers and everything I spoke about. Are you guys figuring it out, or do you have a better idea today than you did?
In terms of how many offers we have to send out to find that sort of needle in the haystack, I'd say about 1 in 75 to 1 in 100, we'll really dig in and spend a ton of time on. Again, we'll probably have to send 100 offers before we have like a meaningful back and forth conversation with an owner that's ready to pull the trigger within the next week. If we get a lot of owners that'll, we'll shoot them an offer and they say, wow, this is intriguing. I'll have to speak with my family. I'll get back to you. And then there's a lot of back and forth. It'll take another 4 or 5 months until they come back to you. So there's a lot of that. But, for example, this deal down in Georgia, he gave us his number over the phone. We sent him an offer the next day. We knew exactly where we needed to be on it. And, we had a contract the next week. It was,
it's not always like that, though.
Not always like
that. Rarely like that.
that was
Can
it.
You guys shed a little bit more light on, kind of, your deal sourcing, your offering process, how you guys are getting, don't give away the secret sauce necessarily, but, how are you guys finding owners, conversations you're having, how you're enticing people, things like that?
Very, very high level. I think Nick touched on it in terms of geographics. Like we'll focus on certain markets. Right now, we're heavily focused on the southeastern seaboard. Once we've narrowed down a location, we'll aggregate a list of owners. Sometimes we'll filter that list out by, looking at who hasn't pulled out debt in like 5, 7, 10 years, maybe a property that hasn't traded in 10 years. We'll look for portfolios. We'll look for in-state ownership, just different, checks, different boxes that we can check to just kind of bring us closer to understanding whether or not this person might be more inclined to sell than someone else. So once we've kind of filtered out the properties, we'll just call, really. I mean, we'll call and we'll just try to connect. It's really nothing fancy. We just try to make a lot of phone calls, as many as possible. And then we just try to keep it as warm as possible, right? I don't really like cold calling. Even if there's some sort of common factor, some sort of common denominator, like the weather or even just sports, like anything that can just initiate conversation and then keep it going. And then we'll just create calendar reminders, literally just to follow up weekly. So we'll have calendar reminders popping up every day, like, hey, follow up with so-and-so. Just keep calling.
Yeah, so I think one thing Luke didn't touch on yet, which really, in my opinion, and I'm sure he'll agree with me, separates us from most is, again, we're putting in a lot of time into deal canvassing. We're not just sitting behind the desk, or looking at Google Maps, looking for parks. He and I have taken many, many trips, and what we'll do is we'll spend, call it 3 weeks in the office, canvassing, doing that type of thing, and we'll plan a canvassing trip. So we call them Southeast canvassing trips. We've done, I think, 5 of them now. We'll fly into Charlotte, and before we get there, we'll plan out meetings and parks that we want to just go drive. Even if we can't get in touch with the owner, or maybe he said, I'm not ready to sell yet, we'll go drive that park, because what's going to differentiate us when it does come time for that owner to sell is we're probably one of the only ones that's driven the park and really know what the conditions like. We know what type of CapEx it needs. So we're not shooting from the hip, really. So we don't view that as really wasted time. We'll go out and we'll tour. I think the last time we did it, we toured 20 parks in 2 days, maybe 3 days. And number one, it gets us much better in tune with the market. We know where pricing should be. We'll tour comps. Number two, we know the difference between a good park and a bad park. We know what areas we want to be in. And we know where we should really be focusing our time. If somebody's 90 years old and, they've got a park that's a little bit run down, and we see another park down the street that's getting double the rent, we know we should really be placing value on that and getting as aggressive as possible to uncover that one, because there's a lot of people that we've spoken with in the business that we've probably talked to 20 different groups out of New York that are interested in investing in mobile home parks, and I'd venture to guess that more than half of them have probably only toured maybe 5 or 10 parks physically. They'll just call from, their desk in New York and, think they know everything about mobile home parks. But again, that's part of it. And that goes back to the reason we're here. Now that we've officially closed on one, okay, we know the specifics of, our acquisition criteria. We know how to find the deal. We know how to cover it. We know where the value is. Now, how do we create and tap into that value? So we've been here overseeing everything for the past 3 weeks. I mean, we literally left the closing table at 3 p.m., came over here, and we had our demo crews already lined up. They demoed the office, renovated the whole thing, and we moved into the mobile home park. We're living on a mobile home park right now. We've been overseeing all of the major capital improvements, so tree work, paving, infrastructure improvements, playground installation. As I mentioned, we renovated the office. We're doing new signage, new entrance. So we're trying to be as active and engaged as we can, so that down the road, now again, when we come across a park that we know needs the same CapEx, we know what to price that CapEx at. We know how much it's going to cost us, and again, we can just get smarter and sort of sharpen the pencil, and again, uncover and close on more deals.
Yeah. I thought
Chris told you not to give away.
Nick gave you guys the secret sauce.
I was going to say, Chris told you not to give it away. I mean,
that's how you get people to give it away.
I spilled the beans. Sorry.
You literally just gave anybody listening the blueprint, and the stuff that you guys are doing different than a lot of groups. And I say it all the time. There is something to be said about going to the market, touring deals that aren't on market. If a deal gets listed, tour the deals around it, go across the street.
Yep.
If you understand the market when that deal, whether it comes on market or you contact that owner, that's how you're going to find a deal. If you wait for a broker to send you something, you guys passed on it already because you drove it and you realize it's crap or for whatever reason. So, I mean, as short of basically giving us, not short of, you gave everyone the blueprint. So if anyone's listening to this, if you had no idea what kind of class of asset you wanted to get into, you didn't know what you wanted to do. If you listen to the, segment, minute 30 here, you can go buy a mobile home park. You're going to have to get your ass out of the chair, and you're not going to be able to just sit at your desk in New York. I mean, back in March of this year, we must have we probably drove about 15, 20 deals. Literally left at 3 o'clock in the morning, got in my car, drove upstate, and we went from, up the Hudson River, up 87, well west, and back down. And I drove the whole time. I had, 3 sleeping people in the car for the whole time. And I was like, what am I doing? But we drove every single park, and these deals were great on paper. And I got here, I'm like, I wouldn't, I don't even want to spit on this park. It was dangerous. I was like, we got to turn around. We're not supposed to be here. So, and it's, that's the stuff that resonates. Investors should get that. New investors should understand that you can't just buy a deal based on, a Google overhead view and a broker OM. That's not going to work. No. I think the mobile home space more important. This space may be a little bit more important than, a Class A multifamily, right? I guess it's a little different, but, doing that alone, you guys have already set yourself far apart, and you've raised the bar for other groups, myself included. And after this, I'm gonna send this video to our team, and I'm like, guys, this is why we only have a couple deals under contract. We haven't closed on anything because we're not doing enough. I mean, thank you guys. You just, you made me a little bit more competitive, but that was amazing.
I think it's important too when you guys are talking about these trips and just relating it back to, talking to the owners and having conversations. I'm sure that's a big talking piece where you call up Mr. Jones, who's owned the park for 20 years, and you say, hey, just following up, I actually got a chance to drive through your park. I was in town. I thought it looked great. And he's like, oh, you were there? And it's like guarantee that 20 other people that have called him over the last, year to 5 years, probably none have driven through. And you can do all sorts of creative stuff. Take a picture and send it to them. Like that's the, the flipping model is go out, take a picture, send it on a postcard and say, hey, I want to buy your home. And it's a picture, same type of thing. If you can relate that back, you're just going to differentiate yourself. And when that guy or girl or person is finally ready to sell, whether it's that conversation or the 200th conversation from there, it's, oh, that's the guy who drove my park that one time. That's such a big differentiator than the guy in New York who's called you 50 times over the last 5 years.
Exactly. In this space, you guys can speak to it more, and I don't want to talk, but I don't want to say these guys are looking for friendship sometime, but some of these owners, top dollars, they want to sell to the group that cares about it. That's going to, they know that it can go to the next level
100%.
And they want to, that interaction, that human interaction and meeting them. The deal we bought, the guy, no family, older guy, a couple of, he had 3 or 4 open heart surgeries. He said, what am I going to do with this? I want to give it to 2 young guys that are ready to make it work. So I think that, and if you guys want to touch on it a little bit more, this space more than anything, that friendship, bonding, that experience alone can shake deals free just because you put the time and effort into it and met the guy on site or, hey, listen, I love what you're doing. I know that we can go low hanging fruit, but if you guys want to speak to that, I think it's important.
We're so transparent in our canvassing and in a lot of our efforts. We document pretty much everything on our Instagram page. You could literally find most of everything that we do on there. We try to give back in any way that we can. There's a reason for it. You touched on it. It's that doing the stuff we do isn't easy. And so we're happy to put it out there because 99% of the people who see it will be like, oh, that's so cool. That's great. Why don't I do that? I want to do that. And then they don't do it. And the 1% though, that do, like, they were probably already going to go crush it anyway. So you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really matter. We don't feel like we're losing a share of the market by giving information out. But
so you want me to tell them the real secrets?
Yeah, no. Next episode. But it's funny, like what we did. So we were in North Carolina last month before we closed this deal here in Hinesville, and we literally just aggregated a list, like we said, of high growth markets within, call it a 30-mile radius of Charlotte. And we picked out mobile home parks that made sense. And since it was close to Halloween, we went to the local, what is it down there? Harris Teeter. And we literally picked up apple pies, Peeps,
popcorn.
And popcorn. So if it was like a class D, you're getting peeps, right? So we would write out mailers, and it was just like, hey, you know, towards your park, you know, give me a call, like whatever, email, website, etc. And then we would find, you know, where the ownership address was, and it wasn't always on the park. Sometimes it was off the park, and we would drop it off. And then if it was like a class C, call it, you know, they'd get peeps. And then if it was like a really nice park, we would leave apple pies. So we did this, you know, probably we hit 20 parks, and we connected with one owner out of those 20 parks, but he is up there in age. And I spoke to him, you know, a couple weeks ago, and he's interested. And it's a really, really nice park, and he will definitely be getting something for Thanksgiving. I guarantee it.
Let me ask you a
You're
question.
absolutely right.
Was that someone you had spoken to prior to, or is that
never?
First?
Nope. We again, you know, it's a numbers game when you do this. Like you're gonna hit 20 parks, and you're literally not gonna run into anyone until maybe the 20th or the 19th. And that's exactly the way that played out. He literally happened to be on site. He was with his maintenance guy. You know, he had a huge pickup truck. It was pretty obvious that he was the owner. He was, you know, more of a white-haired gentleman, and he stuck out like a sore thumb. But it was just, I don't know if you want to call that luck, though. Do you call that luck? Because I don't know. Most people don't hit 20 mobile home parks in one day.
Agreed.
So I think it's really just a byproduct of hard work and persistence.
And you can't go into it having any expectation of finding an owner. We just look at it as, hey, we're going to go drive 20 comps, figure out, you know, look at mobile home parks.
If this market is going to work or not. So I think that's
an owner, great.
Exactly. So even when we were doing our tour, I think we had like 12 parks listed. You're driving from a park to a park, and you see one, you pull in, and you're right, they're going to stick out sometimes. But you know, but I joke around, and when I talk to younger kids and people that come in for interview, and I think I even told you when you first started working with us, I said you got to remember when you hang up, when you stop calling, I'm going to make that extra call, and I'm going to find the deal. So whether it's hard work or luck, I don't care what you call it, but you're right. Nobody's doing it. And I joke around, you know, some people say you're so generous and you give out so much information. You tell us everything. You know, we have a monthly meetup that I tell people play by play how to do this, and they say, why do you do that? And I say, because you're not going to do it. I know that. I know you're not going to do it. So what am I I'm giving you information that's free anyway. I'm not that smart, you know. I'm really not. But I know you're not going to do it. I know that and if you are going to do it, you were going to do it whether you met me or not. So, you know, whether you're in that 1% or whatever you want to consider it, you guys are speaking, you're preaching to the choir, because I'm telling you right now, if a million people listen to this, right, there would be a handful that would think about doing what you guys did in driving parks, and maybe one or two of them would actually go do it. Everyone would talk about it, and they're going to talk about it with their friends. Nobody's going to get off their ass and do it, and that's the problem. So whether it's luck or hard work, you consider it what you want, but it's doing stuff that people don't want to do. And that's what's going to make it successful. Because if everyone can do it, well, then you're not doing anything special. But you're doing the things that nobody's doing, and that's why it worked, and it's working, and it'll probably continue to work. So I think it's important.
That's why we're really. That's why going back to living on the mobile home park. That's why we're doing this. Is like I said, there's probably 50 to 100 new groups this year looking at mobile home parks that are raising capital. How do we differentiate ourselves? Mm-hmm. You know, we're probably one of the few that's ever lived actually on a mobile home park. We're here, you know, we're up at 5:30 in the morning before most of our tenants are, and we're going to sleep after they are. And, you know, we see every interaction. We were collecting rents, you know, rent checks, delivering notice to quits, eviction notices, you know, again, overseeing the capital improvements, and really just immersing ourselves in every aspect of the business, so that now, you know, when we have another deal come around, you know, a lot of times when you're raising capital, investors will ask you, how did you make these assumptions? How do you know, this is how much that's going to cost? Or how do you know you're going to be able to get rents at this number? How do you know you're going to get these collections? And we're going to be able to say, we've lived on a mobile home park. We've experienced this firsthand. You know, we know what it takes.
Yeah. No, I think that's an awesome talking piece. I mean, that's going to put a lot of people at ease. In terms of, let's little segue. You guys have been there now 3 weeks, right?
Yep.
Huge experience. I'm sure you guys have learned a ton. Talk a little bit about what has changed from, day 1 to day 21.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think the infrastructure in and of itself has started to change a little bit. We put mulch down yesterday. Nick touched on the fact that we cleared up the whole front of the park with the trees. That's kind of just more the physical side, like the infrastructure of the park. But
I think let's start here. We didn't really give you guys any of the specifics of the deal, so I'll give you the high level specifics of the deal. I'll let Luke dive into sort of where we've taken it since then. So this park is, it's easily the best located park in this MSA. The opportunity was so unique and awesome for us because it was tied up in litigation. It was your classic story of a mismanaged property that was tied up in litigation between a family. There was a third-party manager who had control of it. They had no budget to do anything for the past 6-7 years, and they were renting to anyone with a pulse. They weren't doing general maintenance and upkeep, and the park just quickly declined. I mean, it used to be one of the best parks in town, and now it's the worst. We mean that in terms of physical condition and the occupants of the park as well. There's literally very bad people living here right now. So, we saw that as an opportunity. We're like, listen, we're directly across the street from a retail power center that was developed last year with Hobby Lobby, Dick's, Chick-fil-A, Panda Express, Starbucks, Chipotle, Five Guys, all these major retailers. And, we're directly going to benefit from that. I mean, most of the tenants that live in our park right now live here because they work across the street in, Walmart or Lowe's or, one of the other retailers that's there. So we saw this as an opportunity. And number two, the infrastructure and everything in the park was just immaculate. I mean, it was just the homes and the condition of the homes isn't very good. As you guys know, typically in the mobile home world, you're ideally looking for acquisitions in which you own none of the homes. That's sort of the goal of the mobile home space is to get into a passive sort of lot lease or land lease type business model. Here, we actually own every single home in the parks. We own 170 mobile homes that we purchased along with the land. And, typically we would have passed on this deal immediately, but because we saw the location and the value in the location, we viewed the park-owned homes as an opportunity because they're, again, in a market where we can sell a brand new home, we're able to take these old homes out of here and control sort of the inventory of homes. So, if a tenant's misbehaving or something like that, if they own their own home, it'd be much more difficult to get them out of here and clean the park up. But because we own the whole stock of homes, somebody's misbehaving or not paying their rent, we're able to, get them out of here relatively quickly, bring in a brand new home, sell that home, on a lease to own and convert it to lot rent. So again, we viewed this as an opportunity where, many other people would have looked at it and said, it's 100% park on homes. Why would I touch that? So, we really dug deep and uncovered this opportunity and we've been crushing it thus far.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So you want to touch on the CapEx a little bit, what we've done since closing?
We've got, so like I said, we've kind of done some tree work here in the front, initial tree work. We've already started renovating a lot of the homes, which is great. We've got 10 units that are fully gutted. One of them should be pretty much rentable, I think, by the end of this week. We've started power washing homes, landscaping. We've put mulch down. We've rented skid steers and cleared out areas ourselves. Ripped down old fencing. We've got paving that's going to be done, I think, in 7 days. And we've got like a 25 camera security system that we're going to be putting up at the end of this month, which we're super excited about. Tenants aren't too excited about it, but we are. And we've also got brand new signage coming in. So, I mean, you name it, like, we're pretty much undertaking it. Because again, the location here, we've got 3 Walmarts within a 1 mile radius. We've got a Lowe's right across the street, a Walmart right across the street. It's really the best located park, not only in Hinesville, I think, arguably in the Savannah MSA, especially given the growth market that we're in here in Hinesville.
Awesome. That's awesome. I mean, I think that, in 3 weeks, you guys identified the property way, earlier than that, but in 3 weeks, I mean, tenants not liking the security cameras like music to an owner's ears. That means that they know it's almost instantaneous that the crime will go down, if not stop, because they're like, come on, what the fuck? What do you guys do? Like, now you're going to monitor us. You're going to get them all out anyway. And that vision to a new prospective tenant, and whether it's selling a home or bringing in a new home, or that's an automatic cleanup. And I'm sure, you guys basically on takeover basically on takeover, you probably created, I don't know what the purchase price was, but there's got to be $1 million of value of basically, that's low hanging fruit. You're probably 6 to 8 months away from, if you wanted to realize a massive return just by getting through this. Now, you can own it for 10 years, 20 years or whatever, but just the immediate cleanup alone has probably made it that much better to the general public, let alone an investor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's sort of the beauty of the mobile home space is the value that you can create just by doing aesthetic changes. So we did $10,000 of tree work, literally made it look like a completely different community. I mean, night and day difference. I mean, it was dreary and dark before, and now there's a ton of light coming in. It's a completely different park since then. And then other things like landscaping and the roads. I mean, that was the residents' number one complaint was the road. So, part of what we wanted to do was come in day one and make good by the tenants and say, listen, we're here to help. We're here to make these changes to better your lives. And improve the quality of your living situation here. And one thing we didn't touch on yet, but from the get-go, we mentioned we left the closing table and got to work. This park had been severely mismanaged. I mean, tenants were leaving garbage all over the place. Everywhere was a mess. The roads weren't swept. I mean, it just a total dump. We came in, and the first thing that we wanted to do was clean up the front area. So the maintenance shed, the office, the entrance. How can we go around and expect, tenants to clean up their yards and keep trash out of their yards if our area is a total mess? So we wanted to lead by example and come in and sort of set the standard as you drive into the community by redoing that aspect first. And now everybody driving in understands that this place is under renovation. It's turning around, and it's only going to get better from here. Yeah.
What about from the personal side, right? You guys are newer to the asset class in the industry, especially just with your own company. What has your learning experience been in the last 3 weeks that you've gained insight into that you may not have gotten or gotten nearly as quick since you've been on site, hands, in the weeds, doing all the dirty work? What's some of the stuff you've learned over the last 3 weeks that, has been super valuable?
So I've had a good amount of experience with turnarounds and being hands-on. I was always on the sort of ownership side.
Okay.
I think this was a big eye opener for Luke.
Yeah, I was more I was very much behind a desk. I mean, I was pretty much like lights out, hands off, being on the financing side during pretty much when you're working on the debt side of a deal. You're not really seeing everything hands-on. You're just kind of like making the connections, securing the funds, getting a term sheet. But then, between due diligence and close, like you're really not seeing any part of the deal. It's
right.
Completely hands-off being on the debt side. So seeing it firsthand here and then closing, it's a really good question, by the way. I'd say over the last 3 weeks, the biggest turning point for me personally has been seeing like the impact of a transaction, not just, for us and the accomplishment that we feel right now and how great it does feel, but also for the tenants. Like there's more far-reaching implications when you purchase a property, especially when you're working in affordable housing like this, where it's really exciting and we are pumped, but our tenants, the ones that are good and are going to stay here, are way more excited than we are, because they've literally been living in these like disheveled conditions for the last, call it 6-7 years, ever since this property went into litigation. And a lot of them don't want to wake up to like gunshots or have people getting arrested or have whatever type of crime activities going on. They want safe environments, and they have children and stuff. We were actually just walking around today. Can I share this? Yeah, I can share this. I was walking around today giving out notices, and there's literally a loaded 9mm handgun sitting outside on a front porch. There's no one home. It's just sitting there.
And meanwhile, we have, probably 30 kids in the park running around all the time with no playground, nothing to do. They're running from home to home. God forbid some kid comes across that.
Oh, it's crazy.
Tragic. Yeah.
So I'll see your pistol and I'll raise you. We bought a deal that was 2 weeks into ownership. The cops broke into an apartment and found 73 guns with 5,500 rounds of ammunition. This is 2 weeks after we bought the property. And lo and behold, 38 days later, I was out on site last week. We had tenants coming into the office with $3,000 and $4,000 delinquencies, paying in full because we came in and landscaped the property, and now they see there's a new ownership in town.
Really? Yeah.
So, but to your point,
Yeah.
exactly, the good tenants, when they see that they are, being able to give back to those tenants is one of the most gratifying feelings, because it's like these people just wanted someone there that cared, and they'll bring tenants in, they'll refer people. It'll be the best thing ever.
Yeah.
But like you said, that gun story, I mean, God forbid just imagine the disaster. We said the same thing. It's like, oh my, are you kidding me? But that's just, that alone is important. The tenants that care, you're giving back 10 times over. And the best part about it, you're also making money while you're doing it. Let's talk about that. But, that alone is probably, the most rewarding thing when you go to bed, knowing that, 10, 15% of your tenants, whatever it is, couldn't possibly thank you enough for coming in and doing what you're doing. Just from the family component, it's got to be amazing.
The support from the community too has been incredible. We sat down with the mayor. He was super excited that we were moving forward with the acquisition. When this happened today, this incident, I mean, we literally have the police on speed dial at this point. And they didn't used to want to come in here. I mean, there were literally officers who would refuse to come in here. We have them coming in here 4 or 5 times a day now, just doing rounds and checking up on people, and they're excited too. So we're really just working side by side with the community to turn this place into what it, could be and will be.
Should be. Yeah.
Yeah.
And going back to your point about, just the gratification you get from that type of thing. I think that's the thing I love most about the mobile home park space is, when I was working in New York City and we'd come in and we'd take an apartment that was renting for maybe $2,400 a month, we'd spend $15,000, $20,000, sometimes 30 or 40. And maybe we'd get $2,800 or $3,000 a month. We're coming in here, we're taking a mobile home that's renting for $350, $400. We're putting, $5,000 to $8,000, $9,000 into it, and we're renting it for maybe $650, $700. But in the case of New York, you're putting all that money in, but you're not really changing the quality of somebody's life that much. Maybe they get stainless steel and nice brand new wood floors. Here, you're literally taking somebody who's living in a mold-infested, old 1970s mobile home that hasn't had any work done to it, putting in $8,000, a third of the capital you would in New York. But, you're doubling their rent, but you're quadrupling the quality of life for that tenant. So that's a very gratifying thing.
For sure.
I think that's that's the part of real estate that's fun, right? No one wants to throw people out on, out of an apartment, but it has to be done. But the reward on the flip side, that's the best part about the business, when you're able to see a smile on someone's face. And I think, one of the major differences in which I saw even when I was touring deals and seeing, a lot of people post pictures of people buying houses in the office, and seeing that smile and you're giving them a great place to live is awesome. If you have to throw out a couple bad tenants for it, that's life, right? It is what it is. But that's the side of the business that, I don't think you truly get the gratification on the multifamily side, because you're giving people a clean, safe place to live, but you're not, I don't want to say changing their life, but you're basically giving these people new opportunities, which they're going to be so happy for. And that's, it's like, the American dream is buying a house, right? And maybe it's not anymore. Or I own a house and I hate it, but I think that these people, the clientele here, they're super thrilled by it. And I think that's just, that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I can just, not to any degree of any of our apartments, but I lived in like a shitty house for a year, and we had issues with the landlord not fixing like the fridge, or there would be like leaks and stuff and on the floor. And like, we had to withhold rent at one point just to get this shit fixed. And, I did what I had to do because I wasn't making enough to, go to a higher rent. But, like living that for a year, I see where people, it's like, if you're in a shitty environment and stuff just gets fixed, you just take care of things. That was, River City when we closed. They had like 320 unit properties, like 150 backed up work orders. We just came in and fixed it, and people were just like, oh yeah, like no problem, raise my rent. Thank you for fixing everything. Like people, that's so much more valuable than people give credit to. And it's an unquantifiable value piece in any property you buy. If you're buying something that's mismanaged, you can't just come in and say, oh, we're going to fix 150 work orders, we're going to raise rent $60. You'll get laughed out of any meeting or phone call you're on. But it's the truth, because people just want, good tenants just want a good, clean, safe place to live first. Then let's talk about interiors and upgrades and value add and all that stuff. But if you can take care of that stuff first, most people are not going to balk at what you're asking for in rent, assuming you're not, 200% above, the rest of the properties in the area. So I think that part of it is huge.
Great.
And if you guys are experiencing it firsthand, I'm sure it's super impactful.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, for sure.
And the mobile home space, the other gratifies, let's call a spade a spade. Where can you live in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or a 2-bedroom, 1, whatever? Where can you live for $600?
$750.
Right.
$750.
Right.
That is it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So I think, that's the biggest difference there is these people get the opportunity to live in what could be, just affordability and it doesn't exist. And that's why we fell in love with the space. But, I think what you guys are doing are awesome. I mean, I think that, it's a great place to end it, right? So it's like, I think what you're doing is fantastic. If you guys, where can people reach you? Where can people find you? If you want to talk about that.
I think we're probably most accessible probably via our social media accounts. So if you want to just tell your followers, your listeners, to check out our Instagram, it's just at Pioneer Communities. And then our website, obviously, pioneercommunities.com. We have a pretty current blog on there where we'll document, for the future acquisitions and then ongoing efforts here at Eagle Creek. And then also just, our personal contact information, which is all on our website as well. If you want to reach out direct.
Feel free to reach out to us anytime. We're always happy to share information, divulge the secret sauce to uncovering good opportunities. And, we're happy to share with you guys.
Awesome. And we'll put it in the show notes so the listeners can, see it, reach out to you. We encourage everyone to reach out to them. They're doing it a little different. And it's impressive. I think that it's
cool. We appreciate that.
People should note it because they're doing some cool stuff.
Awesome. Perfect.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
Thank you.